Israeli strikes in Gaza killed tens of Palestinians on Tuesday, local authorities said. That's as Israel's forces tightened their siege around Jabalia in the north of the enclave, amid fierce battles with Hamas-led fighters. Palestinian health officials said over 10 people had died in a fire near Al-Fallujah in Jabalia, the largest of Gaza's 8 historic refugee camps. Several were reported killed after a strike on Nusayrat camp. Missiles also reportedly hit houses in Khan Yunis and Gaza City. Zarifa Abu Tamia, whose house was hit in Khan Yunis, mourned her cousin Mona.
They didn't give us any warning. We were sleeping, all of us, and no one was awake. I only woke up when people woke me up and said, "You are alive." I was in the same place I was. I started searching for Mona because she was in the same room with me. I started looking for her but couldn't find her.
Jabalia has been the focus of an Israeli offensive for more than 10 days. Israel's military has now encircled the camp there and sent tanks to nearby towns. They've said their aim is to stamp out Hamas fighters who are trying to regroup there and have told residents to evacuate. But the UN said the military appeared to be, quote, cutting off North Gaza completely from the rest of the Gaza Strip. Israel launched the offensive against Hamas after the militant group's October the 7th cross-border attack, in which, according to Israeli tallies, 1,200 people were killed. Gaza's health authorities say over 42,000 Palestinians have been killed in Israel's retaliatory offensive.
Hezbollah is preparing for a long war of attrition in South Lebanon after Israel wiped out its top leadership, according to 2 sources familiar with its operations. 3 weeks of devastating Israeli blows have diminished Hezbollah's capabilities. But a new military command now directs rocket fire, like this strike on a northern Israeli town and the conflict with Israeli troops now on the ground in southern Lebanon, they said. The operations room was set up 72 hours after the group's leader Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah was killed, a Hezbollah field commander and a source close to the group told Reuters. The field commander described the command center as a narrow circle in direct contact with the field and said it operated in total secrecy. After Reuters published that information, Hezbollah's media office issued a statement saying the information attributed to a Hezbollah field commander was false, adding that there are no sources in Hezbollah. Hezbollah has not named a new leader after Nasrallah, with the most likely successor also killed.
What Hezbollah needs now is
Andreas Krieg of King's College London said the Iran-backed group was operating as a decentralized guerrilla movement.
And so we'll see different cells operating more or less autonomously from the central core. And this way they're a very resilient fighting force, because even though Israel has severely degraded the strategic leadership, operational leadership of Hezbollah, they've also degraded the communication system. The different cells of the guerrilla movement are still operating fairly well.
Hezbollah's war of attrition would depend on its tunnel network, which Israel says extends for hundreds of miles. Israel's military released this video footage, which Reuters couldn't verify, said to show deep tunnels captured by its soldiers. The Hezbollah field commander called the tunnels the foundation of the battle. Mohanad Haj Ali of the Beirut-based Carnegie Middle East Center.
We haven't seen any sophisticated strikes against the tunnel system so far, which suggests that Hezbollah will maintain an ability to strike against Israeli forces in the south, even as Israel uses immense firepower and massive destruction against the towns around the border region. So I think the question of how will Hezbollah resist and how strong will the pushback be is banking on whether Israel has any more surprises up its sleeves, or we've moved beyond that, and now it's a regular ground invasion of which Hezbollah is fully prepared and will inflict casualties on the Israeli side.
Israel says its strikes have severely depleted Hezbollah's arsenal and killed hundreds of fighters. But the group still has a considerable stockpile of weapons, and it has yet to use its most powerful precision missiles, 4 sources familiar with its operations said. Krieg of King's College London again.
I think Hezbollah is holding back ballistic missiles for a kind of time of no return, if you will. These are the weapons of last resort, which is surprising considering that Hezbollah is under immense pressure.
Israeli officials have said Hezbollah has been firing 100 to 200 missiles and rockets a day on average, and not the thousands expected, which shows significant weakening. It says its operations in Lebanon are aimed at securing the return of tens of thousands of people displaced from their homes in northern Israel. More than 1 million Lebanese have been displaced, according to Lebanese authorities.
China said its day of war games around democratically governed Taiwan on Monday was a warning against separatist acts. They have threatened more could be in the offing. Though apparently shorter than previous drills, they were intense in terms of swift simulated attacks and deployment of ships and aircraft. But what was China trying to achieve with these drills?
上午8点30分。
The Chinese military said the drills practiced blockading Taiwan's maritime lifeline for imports. It aimed to flex its ability to stop the offloading of crucial liquefied natural gas, or LNG, according to one Chinese military expert in local media. Such a tactic could isolate Taiwan ahead of any full-blown invasion. However, Taiwan's state-run energy company said on Monday LNG imports had been unaffected. Here's the director of Defense Strategy and Resources at Taiwan's top military think tank, Suju Yun.
所谓的 punishment 其实不是
This drill was actually not a so-called punishment. Most importantly, China wanted to show the whole world its ambitions and its political goals. This is why we say that this kind of military action by China is 70% political and 30% military. It is mostly a political exercise. This time there was a rather special component, the so-called quarantine or blockade, during which they practiced their blockading abilities. This is why Taiwan kept its guard up.
所以台湾还是会保持警戒。
A map issued by China's military showed drill zones closer to Taiwan than in previous exercises. For the first time, it included areas within Taiwan's 24-mile contiguous zone. China's Coast Guard, the world's largest by far, also patrolled around the island in unprecedented numbers, according to an analyst. Taiwan officials say use of the Coast Guard is part of a gray zone strategy. It stops short of war, but aims to enforce what China calls its right to manage and control the Taiwan Strait. The drills drew quick condemnation from the Taiwan and the United States governments. But Zhu Yun says the drills are an opportunity for Taiwan to learn formations and Chinese military tactics, and it must also prepare for further tensions in the future.
先把台湾自己的防卫
Taiwan has to first strengthen its defensive capabilities, including all kinds of anti-ship missiles and air defense missiles, which is the priority. In this situation, Beijing will not be confident to use force. In other words, only if we stay pessimistic militarily can we really maintain peace.
Inside this underground laboratory, China hopes to win a global race to solve one of the biggest mysteries in particle physics. The $300 million Jiangmen Underground Neutrino Observatory, or JUNO, is located 2,300 feet beneath the surface of the southern Guangdong province. It will soon start gathering data on neutrinos, a product of nuclear reactions. Trillions of extremely small neutrinos pass through matter, including the human body, every second. Chao Jun is the deputy manager of JUNO.
One neutrino can change to another neutrino at a flight. So such a special property may have a big impact to the nature, how nature works and how the universe evolves.
JUNO comprises a giant sphere equipped with thousands of light-detecting tubes. In the coming months, it'll be sealed in a 12-story cylindrical pool of water. Chinese physicists and scientists from all over the world will analyze the data on neutrinos emitted by 2 nuclear power plants.
In 6 years, we will get some answer on our primary goal to measure the neutrino mass ordering, and we plan to run this experiment for 30 years.
Neutrino observatories are also being constructed in other nations. Juno is due to go operational in the latter half of 2025. That's well ahead of the far larger June, under construction in the US, which has been plagued by delays and budget overruns. June, or the Deep Underground Neutrino Experiment, is expected to come online around 2030. As for the real-life neutrino applications, they remain a distant prospect so far. However, some scientists have mulled the possibility of relaying long-distance messages via neutrinos, which pass through solid matter, such as the Earth, at near light speed.
Millions of people across southern Africa are facing the worst food crisis in decades. That's according to the World Food Programme on Tuesday. The UN agency warned that its ability to provide relief hangs in the balance due to funding shortfalls. There are unprecedented drought conditions in a record 5 countries: Lesotho, Malawi, Namibia, Zambia and Zimbabwe. The agency has declared a state of disaster and called for international humanitarian support. WFP's regional officer, Thompson Fury, said this major issue could deepen into a, quote, full-scale humanitarian crisis.
Millions of people risk going hungry as Southern Africa enters lean season. The United Nations World Food Programme is today calling for urgent assistance to prevent a widespread drought triggered by the El Niño phenomenon from deepening into a full-scale humanitarian catastrophe. A historic drought, the worst food crisis yet, has devastated more than 27 million lives across the region. Some 21 million children in Southern Africa are malnourished.
WFP is planning to provide food and in some cases cash to more than 6.5 million people in the 7 hardest hit countries. That would cover the period until the next harvest in March. But the WFP said that it's only received about a fifth of the $369 million it needed.
October in Southern Africa marks the start of the lean season, and each month is expected to be worse than the previous one until harvest next year in March and April. Crops have failed, livestock has perished, and children are lucky to receive 1 meal per day. The situation is dire, and the need for action has never been clearer.